Hey there, Wolfpack fans. O'Connell to the Oak City. Kevin Keatts land the Stanford guard. We'll talk about all that and more in today's episode of Locked On Wolfpack.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back in, Wolfpack fans. Thank you again for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. As always, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and also here on YouTube. To start off this episode, we're going to kick it to our favorite college basketball insider, Mr. Trilly Donovan.
Trilly D!
Put this out as a reminder here. When you listen to this on Thursday, when you see it says tomorrow night, this means tonight. And as I read the tweet to you, friendly reminder that the transfer portal closes, which is tonight, but you can still expect a handful of transfer announcements through the weekend because of the paperwork processing kind of window delay. Emails have to be sent by midnight tonight on Thursday to be eligible for the one-time transfer window. And then he had another follow-up comment noting that the grad transfers that are going in and out of the portal, they kind of do not have to abide by this portal closing midnight tonight on Thursday. So don't be surprised when you still see additional transfer portal announcements despite the portal closing this window here on midnight on Thursday. So this leads us into our next discussion. As we mentioned on yesterday's show, I've been hearing some whispers of connections to a specific point guard out of the state of California, more specifically coming from the Stanford basketball team. Those whispers became kind of confirmation today, as I'll pull up yet another tweet here. I'm going to read this one to you. This one is from Andrew Slater. He is kind of another Trilly Donovan type. Although I think Andrew's been in the the inside gossip game a bit longer than Mr. Trilly D has. But this was confirming that Michael O'Connell will be on campus here in Raleigh this weekend for his official visit. And it appears that NC State is going head-to-head with Wichita State to bring home Michael O'Connell. So, Kenton, initial thoughts. Michael O'Connell, is this who should be our point guard for this coming season?
Well, if we can't land Michael O'Connell, I guess that would be a shocker. But get it? Because he's Wichita State's the other team. Never mind. We're not going to go there today. But anyway, very seriously, I don't know if he should be the point guard. Let me not throw that out there and say, hey, this is the guy that I want being the lead guard for this team. Even though DJ Horn is a lot more of a score first type of point guard. If I'm just looking at the sheer ability and capabilities that I've seen out of these two so far, I'd definitely say I probably want Horn to be the lead guard as opposed to O'Connell, and O'Connell coming in a reserve role, especially seeing as how O'Connell has another year of eligibility left to, potentially sit behind Horn, kind of get a feel for the speed of the game at ACC and how things are playing out in the lay of the land here. But I think that O'Connell can be a stabilizing force for the second unit. I think that he can be a good point guard amongst if we have foul trouble amongst our main rotation in the backcourt, he can come in and help out with that. But I'm not sure that getting him would be a massive upgrade over LJ at this point in time, or Breon Pass.
As far as a massive upgrade, I guess that would still be up in the air, but I do think it's an upgrade in the sense of the experience that O'Connell would bring to the table. Like we mentioned yesterday, he does have 89 games in the Pac-12 under his belt. Well, not necessarily just the Pac-12, but at Stanford, he has played in 89 games. 76 of those he has started. So not just playing in and seeing a little bit of time, but significant minutes in, 76 to 89 games as a point guard for a team in the Pac-12. I noticed a lot of people kind of, as we often do, we immediately go to the stat sheet. And I think, I sound a bit like a broken record in breaking down some of our transfer recruits, but I do think Michael O'Connell is another guy that falls in the category of he's more than meets the eye on the stat sheet. This past season at Stanford, just 5.2 points a game, 2.5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists. He's about a 40% field goal shooter. And from three, not that effective, only right around 30%. So, ultimately, I do think that if it does end up being O'Connell, the main driving force here is we just need somebody to steer the car. We don't necessarily need him to mash the gas down, because I do think we have a lot of weapons still that we can supplement with around him, such as a Casey Morsell, a Jaden Taylor, a DJ Horn, a DJ Burns. The list goes on. I think the most important piece for O'Connell is, can he be effective in facilitating to all these players while maintaining, of course, a low turnover rate, being able to create, not just, get the ball, but create for others, and then being able to, score where he can, I guess, as an added bonus. Can he do this? Based on the limited tape I've seen, I think he can. It's just going to be, we're going to have to find out if he can do it consistently to be effective. Right. I mean, that's something that's, still to be considered. We mentioned going up against Wichita State here for a point guard. You got to feel pretty good about, if it's coming down to NIL, respectfully, I think we got him beat there more than likely. But, if this is our guy, then go ahead and make him the guy. If especially, with the portal closing tonight, we don't have more time to mess around here.
Right.
And let him slip away if this is who we're truly interested in. So I think, hearing the interest here, and of course, yes, he visits this weekend, but I think we're going to see this happen pretty quick if this is how it's going to turn out.
Well, and this is the only thing I'm confused about with him visiting this weekend. If the portal closes at midnight Thursday and he's not a grad transfer, am I incorrect about that? Is he a grad transfer?
I think there's probably a lot more to this that I don't know personally. He could be coming as a grad transfer. He's already completed 3 years at Stanford, so he could already have a degree. I do not know at the current moment, but he could be considered a grad transfer.
Okay, because I was just confused on the timing of it, because it's like if you're
right
visiting, and it's a difference between visiting and like, hey, I'm committed, I'm just coming to see the campus just because. But I don't know. I look at this and I say that he seems to be a good enough player. I haven't seen anything that jumps off the page. With most of these other guys, I have seen something. I've seen the it factor, the pop, the athleticism, something that gives me like, hey, he's one of them ones. We need him yesterday. I think it's good to have O'Connell. Like I talked about with Jaden Bradley, it's great to have a playmaker supreme like Jaden. It's great to have a playmaker like O'Connell. Obviously, I would say O'Connell is a step down from Jaden, but it's good to have somebody whose main strength is stirring the drink and setting the table. It's great, but I don't know if that's enough for me to say like, hey, you need to be the starter. You need to be the starter right away.
I think that's maybe where some folks are kind of jumping off, is that we had kind of the high of chasing a guy with the talent of a Jaden Bradley. And then I think some people kind of look at this as, oh, well, is this the best we can do now? So I think you gotta let Jaden Bradley go, because that is now a done deal, obviously. But
right.
I think there's still a lot that Michael O'Connell can bring to the table. It's just that he's not going to wow you off the stat sheet. So I do encourage folks to, go take a gander at some of his highlight tape. Again, it's not incredible. It's nothing spectacular, but there's a lot of little things that he does right that can translate to big things for other players. But this is certainly something we're going to keep an eye on here as the week goes on. Like I mentioned, I would probably expect to see some kind of announcement, I guess, one way or the other. by the end of the week, if not the weekend or possibly early next week on Monday. So for now, we're just gonna have to sit and wait. We're gonna have to see what Keatts has in the kitchen, or if he turned the oven off for the time being. But it's been smelling good recently. We're gonna have to see how it's smelling moving forward. But today's sponsor for today's show is Built. If you're looking for a delicious snack that Coach Keatts may or may not be cooking in his kitchen, but you don't want all the calories, then you need the best tasting protein bar ever, and that is Built. They come in unbelievably tasty flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. So head to your local Walmart or Sam's Club to pick up a 4-bar box or a 13-bar box today. Built Bar. Thank me later. All right, so for this next segment, it's probably going to take up the majority of the rest of this show. It's a little bit of a pain by choice segment. I saw this another tweet that I saw on Twitter. This one is coming from the Red and White podcast. Shout out the Red and White podcast. Those guys do a good job over there. But their question that I saw floating around, if you could go back in time and change one play, call, or injury in all of NC State sports history, what would it be and why? Kenton, I'm going to let you take the wheel first. What would you go back and change if you could change one thing that's ever happened to NC State?
Well, obviously, it'd be my first Achilles tear. I mean, for Christ's sake, I was hitting. No, I'm just joking. But very seriously, I know this is low-hanging fruit, and I don't care. If we could go back to that College World Series, the COVID incident and all.
I had a feeling you were going there.
I'm sorry. I gotta say it because all of the other ones we would have to project out a lot of different things happening. There could have been no worse result than what we saw happen to us because of the COVID situation there. We forfeited. That was the worst possible. The worst possible outcome is we play the game and we lose, which is the exact same thing that we had happen to us with the forfeiture. Literally the exact same thing. So if we could go back and just give them the old shot, because I think a lot of people like to say, Elliott Avent has been here for nearly 3 decades now.
This is year 27, I believe.
Yeah. He's been with the Wolfpack almost as long as I've been on Earth. Or actually 27. He could have been with the Wolfpack as long as I've been on Earth. So with that being said, I get it. I completely understand why people say, he doesn't have anything to show for it by way of championships in terms of ACC or NCAA tournament. But think about how different the feelings would be about everything, including even this season. Think about how different it would be in terms of potential NIL money or whatever the case may be for the boosters and whatnot. Maybe we keep Tommy Tanks. Think about what different world we live in if just that one domino falls in the other direction. Think about how even if we still lose Tommy Tanks and we're having the exact same season we have now, think about the different way people would talk about Coach Avent if he has a natty in the last 3 years coming into a season like this where every time we believe in this team, they let you down. Think about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so when I saw this today, this was my answer, us being ousted from the 2021 College World Series amongst the NCAA, I guess, clouded judgment. I'll leave it there, as we all do remember how that played out. But yeah, that one will likely haunt me as long as I live, or at least until we end up with a College World Series championship. But myself being a baseball guy and following the baseball team so closely year in and year out, to see us right on the doorstep of a national championship in baseball, just for me personally, it was a huge deal. But, like you mentioned for the school, And especially for Elliott Avent, because that would have been, I guess, year 25.
Yeah.
And for him to be here so long and to be so accomplished for so many years and to be that close and not to get that close and lose, but to get that close and not even have the opportunity to see how that would have played out. I think that is one of the most painful things. But that team was the definition of being hot at the right time as they mowed through the regional down in Ruston, knocking off Louisiana Tech, and then went into Arkansas, who was the best team in the country in 2021.
And turned them into the Homa Hogs. Sent them right
turn
on
them
home.
into the stay-at-Homa Hogs instead of the Oma Hogs, as they like to refer to themselves, but knocked off the number one team in the country in their house with their best pitcher on the mound in Game 3 in Kevin Keatts.
Walk in your trap, take over your trap, as the kids today say. Walk in your trap and take over your trap.
I mean, just the high that those guys were riding, just getting to Omaha. And then you face a Stanford team that had been great all year, and you stick it to them in Game 1. You face Vanderbilt's best pitcher in Jack Leiter, and you find a way to beat him 1-0. You have all the momentum you could possibly ask for, effectively putting yourself in what you would consider the Final Four. Then at that point in the tournament, they were in the Final Four of the college baseball world. And then, the rest happened how it happened. So, yeah, that one's going to haunt me literally forever. So that was your answer. I'm going to let you have that one. I'm going to change the direction here on one of the things that I find interesting. If you could, tweak one thing in the past. For me, I think it's probably the missed field goal at Clemson. What was that, 2015, 2016?
Oh, yeah, just about. It had to be one of those years.
I want to say it was 2016. Anyway,
I was still in college when that happened. Yeah. This
was the year that Clemson then went on to win the national championship with Deshaun Watson. But for all intents and purposes, we had Clemson beat in Death Valley. Had we just been able to make, what was it, a 32-yard field goal? Something.
Yep.
It was a gimme.
It was in 2016. Mm-hmm.
But think about the trajectories of both programs after that. You might not have, a world-beating superpower in Clemson that you have now. Had we just made that one kick, we have no idea how the rest of that plays out. What does State look like if we knock off Clemson in that game? This is a complete reach, but what if we knocked off Clemson in that game and we end up with Will Shipley a couple of years down the road? You never know. Because he was that close to coming to NC State. There's a laundry list of moments to go back and pick on. I saw a bevy of good answers. Trey Turner being safe at home plate. I believe that was in the ACC tournament. You have Trey Turner almost hitting a home run in Omaha. That would have changed that game against UCLA. You have, TA was in, which he was. He was absolutely in. You have the fourth down call against Ohio State. That was painful. You have Russell Wilson, the fourth down play against Maryland. Had we gotten it, we're going to the ACC championship. That, I think, that one could be super consequential because we'd be playing for an ACC championship. You win that. Not only do you have a title, somewhat recently, but, in the recruiting game and the momentum game, and it's just, oh my God. Yeah. I thought this is why this segment would be fun because there's just so many endless angles you can take this thing.
Can I go back to the Clemson in 2016 for a moment here? People, you got to remember, that game was a week after beating Notre Dame in that monsoon game, right? And then the very next week after that monsoon game, you go and play Clemson, okay? Now, here's why that's important. At that point in time, NC State had already been upset by ECU earlier in the season, okay? But to that point, they were 4-1 with wins over Wake Forest and Notre Dame. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wake Forest ain't a win that you really want to brag about. That wasn't a great Notre Dame team, and that's fine. But again, if you look at the rest of that season, that game did not just beat NC State once. It beat them in multiple games back to back to back. What do I mean? What do I mean by that? We lose that game in OT, and then we lose to Louisville by 41 points. Don't get me wrong. I think Lamar Jackson, for what he's the best football player I've ever seen in person. I'm not saying that, if we mess around and beat Clemson, we won't lose to Louisville. We will not get demolished. And that 54-13 score doesn't accurately reflect how bad this game got. This game was 44-0 at halftime. Like, that's a real thing that happened. So I'm trying to tell you that if that kick goes in, you have a different team at Louisville, and then we lose to a Boston College team, which, Lord knows, we had no business losing to. Not a lick or ounce of business losing to that Boston College team. But that's the type of stuff that happens when you go through those lows and you start not believing in yourself. You say, are we really supposed to win this game? And then you go after that and you lose another close one against Florida State. Just imagine, right? Let's say you beat Clemson and you still lose to Louisville, but then those next two games that are one possession games, you win one of the two. You're looking at a very different season. And that was a season in which we won 7 games. You're looking at a very different season, potentially a 10-winner if things shake out right in that Clemson game.
The elusive 10-win season that we have not been able to capture despite our best attempts here in most recent years. But yeah, I mean, fun segment to talk about. I mean, I'm sure as you guys are listening, you're probably saying to yourself many more moments that you would pick and why. And unfortunately, it is probably because there are so many. And I think, this is why the phrase NC State stuff still kind of rages on every time you see something go poorly for us. But, one of these days, the squirrel is going to find the nut. One of these days, the sun will shine down on us and we will celebrate a championship. But we were going to shake this thing out in just a moment after a quick word of our sponsors. So, to round this out, just a couple of administrative things coming up for the end of the week. We have baseball on the road at Chapel Hill. I will actually be there tonight, Thursday night. I wanted to see the boys take on Chapel Hill on the road. Hopefully, I will bring some good luck with me. I believe the women's golf team has advanced to nationals. I don't want to misspeak. I think it might be the first time in school history. If that is the case, best of luck to women's golf. That's an amazing accomplishment. And, like we started the show, we're on Michael O'Connell watch, I believe, or possibly another point guard watch. This portal closes tonight. You're still, like we mentioned, still going to see some grad transfers floating around. So keep in mind that if O'Connell ends up not being the selection, we can still get a grad transfer point guard if we find one to be interesting or Keatts decides to go after. But a lot of things on the horizon this week, a lot of things on the horizon for the rest of the month. But we're looking forward to it all. Kenton, any last words?
And I'll tell you this. If you're thinking, well, they're still in the portal as a grad transfer at this point, that means they aren't about nothing. Raina Perez was a grad transfer. And she wasn't one of the first players to commit. And look how that worked out.
Jarkel Joyner, grad transfer.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind, folks.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for giving us yet another listen to Locked On Wolfpack. As we always mention, usually toss us a like, toss us some comments. If you have additional thoughts on the one play that you would change in NC State history, toss us some comments on Michael O'Connell, whether you think this should be a all systems go, or if, maybe we should be a little bit patient and continue to look. Let us know what you think. But as always, mash that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter. Let us know your thoughts on there as well. And as always, go Pack.
Go Pack.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.